we'd like to welcome each of you here today. We have our Georgia Baptist Pastors Day. We have over 100 pastors and denominational leaders here today registered to be a part of our first annual Georgia Baptist Pastors Day.
I want you to know that we all are here because of a very serious concern. As Christians, and even as people of faith beyond the Christian community, we see that there is a growing intolerance for people who are Bible-believing or even of other faiths.
If there is discrimination in this country, quite honestly, it has been against people of faith, and it must stop.
There is a war that is going on. It is a war on religious liberty. And it appears to me that those who are targeted are not the Muslims, nor the Hindus, nor the Jews, nor the Buddhists, but it seems in particular it's the Christians.
How would you respond to people who say that people of faith, particularly Christianity, are being persecuted in America and in Georgia, and we need this extra law in place to protect them?
Well, first, it puzzles me completely that anybody in America would say that. As a Christian and as a Baptist, particularly in the state of Georgia, not only do I not feel as though I'm being discriminated against, I feel like I'm probably part of a privileged group in Georgia.
Everybody has a right to their own religious belief, but nobody has the right to impose your religious belief on me or anybody else. To legislate religion has always been a bad idea.
People might, on the other side of this issue, might respond by saying, well, religion is under attack. We need more safeguards in place to prevent the suppression of our own personal beliefs. What would you say to that?
I think it's disingenuous. I'm a Jew. I'm a rabbi. I understand under attack. My synagogue routinely has police presence. There was a bomb found in a local park in our area with notes targeting the Jewish community. We just talked about the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, which really isn't that long ago. We know what it's like to be vulnerable, and in many parts of the world, like in France today, we're still vulnerable. So to say that Christian religion is under attack, it's their brand of what they might like to see is not going the way they want it, and I think it's arrogant. And there needs to be a majority voice, a pluralistic voice, and an interfaith voice that you heard today to be present to fight against some of those arguments.
I am a Lutheran pastor, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. My name is Reverend William Flippin Jr. I'm here because I'm compelled that this bill is one of discrimination, one that violates what the Ten Commandments is all about, to love for your neighbor.
I guess why such strong opposition from the other side of this bill?
Well, I think such strong opposition simply because we live in a world, our nature is a sin nature.
You know, I get tickled when people say on a certain moral issue, well, you just can't legislate morality. And I want to ask you folks, well, why do you meet down here? Have you ever known of a law in the state of Georgia that wasn't about legislating morality? It's all about the restraint of evil. I know what a person means by that. You can't change people's hearts. You can't change their desires by legislation. I understand that. But government has a key role in restraining man's sin and evil.
What would you say to opponents of the bill who argue that there should be a separation of church and state?
You know, this country was founded on religious freedom, and what this bill does, it just keeps the government out of people being able to have the right to worship the way they want to worship.
What we do want to prevent is any laws that would come into play that would prevent us from exercising freely those truths which we hold very dear, and also from having those be a rub between what would be public policy, rights of others that would be imposed or respected above those of Christians or other religious groups.
You see, we are living in a society that is on a collision course with the choice between erotic liberty and religious liberty. And what just happened with Fire Chief Cochran in the city of Atlanta, even though it is not your business, I realize, that is out of the mayor's office, it is just one example of what our culture is going to increasingly see in regards to issues of erotic liberty versus religious liberty.
My religious liberties and freedoms are already protected by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Georgia. I can speak, I can meet, I can assemble, I can say what I want to say. We don't need this bill.
Could you give an example of maybe something you're trying to protect against with this bill?
Sure. At Savannah State University, we had a situation where a Christian student organization held a foot washing ceremony on campus. The organization was kicked off of campus following that. We had a situation up in Chesty High School up in the Hall County area where students who were engaging in voluntary prayer after a football game, or excuse me, prior to a football game, were basically told by the school district under threat of litigation, you can't do that anymore.
And even though the majority of your constituencies have now embraced erotic liberty as a primary virtue over religious liberty, I hope that you men and women will consider our heritage in thinking about the role of government in not only protecting the citizens and administering justice, but also working for the common good. And that's where we're really partners.
As far as writing something into the bill that would protect people against discrimination, is that something you plan to do or think is valid?
No, as I said in the press conference, this bill is about religious liberty. You know, we have a specific, rule in the Georgia General Assembly about single subject legislation. There are 235 other members of the Georgia General Assembly. If there are people that feel like we need to change our employment laws in this state, which in my view have nothing to do with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, you know, we can have that debate, we can have that discussion, but I think trying to link these issues, it's something that these groups on the far left are trying to do because they think that's the best way to try to get their bill passed, and I understand that, but the issues have nothing to do with one another. I'm going to stay focused on my commitment to religious freedom. If we can get this bill passed, then maybe we can have that conversation.
I was the former co-pastor of Dr. King's Church for 6 years, from 1978 to 84. I served on the national staff of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, so I'm a civil rights brat. That's why I know the history. I know how painful it was. And I know what people did in the name of religion and the hurt and pain it caused upon our citizens. I don't want to go back to that. We want to move forward.
Do you believe that we are a Christian nation?
I do believe that we were based upon a Christian nation. I would like to think that we still have a remnant of folks who are strong believers. And yes, so I would say that if you look at the documents, we just looked at the bottom floor of the Capitol here, and there are documents there, even the Ten Commandments, that says, yes, we're still a religious nation or a Christian nation.
Do you think the U.S. is a Christian nation?
I believe it was formed as a Christian nation, and I believe there are many Christians still in the nation, but I think that many of the principles and laws that are now being established are moving us away from that.
I think that it can be disappointing when you've enjoyed a privileged status anywhere and suddenly that privilege is no longer there, and that may be part of what we're seeing here with folks kind of, grabbing for that. But I would just remind all of us who are Christians that, we follow Christ, and he really was never grabbing for a privileged status anywhere. He kind of laid himself down instead.
I think it puts everybody at risk. I don't think it's good for Georgia. I don't think it's good for America. I don't believe it's going to be good for my Jewish community here in Atlanta.
I don't know where this battle will take us, but there are many of us who are willing to pay whatever price is necessary in order to win this war.